Hello, everyone. My name is Cameron Baptiste, and I'm a meteorologist with the National Weather Service for the Houston Galveston area. With hurricane season approaching, it is important to ensure that we, our families, our friends, and our communities are properly prepared. So, throughout this video, we're going to talk about hurricanes in general, the outlook for the 2025 Atlantic hurricane season, and steps that you can take now to become prepared before hurricane season even begins. So, let's get started. Now, hurricane season officially runs from June 1st through November 30th, but storms have formed before in the month of May as recently as 2021. Activity tends to ramp up in August and peaks in September. For Texas, the risk starts tapering off by October as the hurricane track climatology trends further eastward. Now, how do we determine the category of hurricanes? Well, hurricanes are rated using the Safer Simpson Hurricane Wind Scale. So that means it primarily refers to the wind hazard of a hurricane and is only partially related to the storm surge. Now keep in mind that the scale doesn't capture any other hazards such as tornadoes or flooding, the latter of which is often one of the deadliest parts of a storm. Now hurricanes rated a category 3 or greater are classified as major hurricanes. Now with that in mind, was Hurricane Ike a major hurricane at landfall? It was not. Hurricane Ike was only a Category 2 hurricane, albeit a high end Category 2. But that just goes to show you that even a non major hurricane can have widespread devastating impacts for our area. Now, did you know that since 2017, the Gulf Coast has seen more major hurricanes than been seen in the 50 plus year period extending from 1963 to 2016? So the main graphic on the screen here is showing you the recent landfalls from 2017 all the way up to 2024. So last year we had Major Hurricane Helene make landfall in Florida. So essentially, it seems to be a one per year landfall rate for major hurricanes along the Gulf Coast. And we all know that the Gulf can quickly turn a tropical storm into a major hurricane, which leaves us with little time to prepare. So that's why preparing ahead of the season is going to be key in case of any accelerated timelines. Most of the tropical systems that make landfall in Texas have either developed or rapidly intensified over the Gulf. That means that there's not much time between when a storm develops and when it makes landfall. So, as we just talked about, early preparation is key. Another fact is 8 out of the last 9 tropical cyclones that made landfall in Texas since 2010 have developed within the Gulf. Now we're going to take a look at some recent storms. Hurricane Ike made landfall as a large, high-end Category 2 hurricane back in 2008. The main hazards with Ike were the major storm surge, or with the major storm surge flooding, which led to waves overtopping the 17-foot high seawall along Galveston Island over 100. Now, back last year in July, Hurricane Beryl reminded us that even a Category 1 hurricane can bring widespread impacts. Beryl's eye wall moved over the Houston metro area, bringing strong winds, which led to over 2 million power outages for a few days. And in addition to that, we also received 8 to 12 inches of rainfall, leading to widespread flooding. Now we're going to talk about a few more examples of hurricane hazards. Back in 1983, Hurricane Alicia brought widespread damaging winds. Hurricane Ike, as we just talked about, brought major storm surge flooding. Hurricane Harvey in 2017 dropped historic rainfall along with multiple tornadoes. So the main takeaway from this is that every storm is going to be different. Each one brings a unique mix of these hazards in different proportions. So that's why it's important to just be prepared. Now let's talk about which hazards are the most deadly when it comes to hurricanes. About 90% of the fatalities from hurricanes come from water related hazards, with storm surge and rainfall, which is essentially just inland flooding, making up the largest percentages of that. Now, keep in mind that wind hazards also cause fatalities, but these occur at a lower rate compared to the water related hazards. Starting in 2021, NOAA updated the average Atlantic hurricane season to reflect the climate record for the 1991 through 2020 period. So, an average hurricane season now is 14 named storms, 7 hurricanes, and 3 major hurricanes. Now, did you know that the water temperatures in the Eastern Pacific, which is essentially off of the western coast of Ecuador and Peru, that the water temperatures in the Eastern Pacific has an impact on tropical activity in the Atlantic Ocean. So abnormally warm waters near the equatorial Eastern Pacific is known as an El Nino, and a La Nina is when there's abnormally cooler waters in that same region. A La Nina creates more favorable conditions for tropical cyclone formation due to the creation of weaker wind shear across the Atlantic, which means that more storms are possible, while an El Nino creates less favorable conditions, so fewer storms are possible. So, what are we looking at for this year? For what are we looking at for 2025? Well, we are currently transitioning from a La Nina to a what we call an ENSO neutral or a neutral phase. So, and also the water temperatures in the Atlantic are currently warmer than normal, but they are not as warm as they were back in 2024. So now we're going to look at the left-hand side of the screen here. The circled area is the Atlantic Ocean. We see in the top left image that we see a lot of darker oranges, even some reds in there. That shows how warm the waters were back in 2024. And you compare that to the image in the bottom left-hand side of the screen, and we see just some yellows, maybe some slightly darker oranges. So we're still seeing above normal temperatures for this time of the year, but not as warm as they were back in 2024. And then where the arrow is pointing off of the western coast of Ecuador and Peru, down near South America, the blue waters or the blue colors in the top left image shows that the abnormally cooler waters in that area to signify the La Nina from last year. And then compare that to this year, we're just seeing some light yellows and some light yellows and light blues in that area to signify that we're transitioning into a ENSO neutral phase. And in the graphic on the right-hand side of the screen, that it shows that the highest probabilities throughout the summer months are that we will likely be in a ENSO neutral phase. And this combination favors above normal activity for the season. Colorado State University released their forecast earlier this month, and they are forecasting an above normal season due to those previously mentioned factors. But what I want to point out is the last two sentences in their explanation that it only takes one storm to make it an active season. So regardless of what the season is predicted to be, you should go ahead and make the proper preparations. Also, want to point out that NOAA's hurricane season outlook typically comes out towards the end of May, probably towards usually the last week of May. So keep a lookout for that. Now we're going to take a look at some steps that you can take to become prepared before hurricane season begins. And the first step is going to be to know your risk. What are you most vulnerable to? If you are closer to the coast, storm surge and rip currents are going to be an additional risk, in addition to the strong winds, tornadoes, and flooding from the rainfall. So keep in mind, we all know that hurricanes bring numerous hazards and risks, and the first step is to know what you are vulnerable to. Develop an evacuation plan. Do you live in an evacuation zone? If you're in an evacuation zone, know your route now and have multiple routes. Have multiple routes at the ready, and don't find out what the route is when a storm is just a day away. Know what it is ahead of time. Southeast Texas does have designated evacuation routes that are supported with fuel, food, and emergency resources. So know where to go and know how to get there safely. In addition to that, have a go bag of supplies ready to go for you, your family, and your pets. Be sure to follow evacuation orders from officials. So we just talked about evacuation routes and evacuation zones. So we have the evacuation routes on the left and evacuation zones on the right overlaid with the evacuation route. If you live in any of these evacuation zones, know which route you want to take and have multiple options. And also remember that these routes are supported with fuel, food, and resources to keep you safe along the way. The next step is going to be to make your disaster kit. So you want to have enough food and water for everyone for at least 3 days, preferably more. Keep your gas tank full. One of my personal rules for hurricane season is to keep my gas tank at least half full at all times. Have your prescriptions filled, have extra batteries, your important documents in paper form, including insurance information, and have cash on hand in case of power outages. Get an insurance checkup. We just talked about this. Know what you're covered for, know your policy, and be sure to keep your documents with you, preferably in paper form or in something you can use in the offline use on your smartphone devices. And remember that flood insurance is separate and that there is a waiting period before it becomes active. Then your home. If a storm is threatening, take the proper steps to keep your home safe, whether they be covering your windows, securing loose outdoor items such as patio furniture, securing your doors, trimming your trees, or moving your vehicle to a safe location such as a parking garage. Helping your neighbors. You want to help out your community, especially if there's any vulnerable in your community, such as senior citizens. Assist them with supplies and evacuation if needed. And if they choose to stay behind, be sure to check on them once it is safe to do so. Now, that was a lot to remember, so the best way to remember all of this is to add it to a written plan. Have a list of all of the supplies you need, evacuation routes, insurance information, a list of essential contacts, and information to stay safe before, during, and after a storm. Additionally, you want to share your plan with a few people outside of the impact area so that if communication behind a storm is limited, someone will know someone will know where to find you. Be sure to stay informed throughout hurricane season. During hurricane season, the National Hurricane Center issues tropical weather outlooks that displays the area and the chance a disturbance could develop into a tropical cyclone. The X marks the current center position, and in the 7-day outlook, like the example in the bottom right image here, the hashed area outlines the area where development could occur. Now, if you mouse over either the X or the hashed area, you will see a discussion with additional details along with a percentage chance of tropical cyclone formation. Now, both the National Hurricane Center and your local National Weather Service office will be great resources to stay informed throughout the season. Our websites and social media platforms can be found on the left hand side of the screen here. So be sure to follow us on social media, bookmark those websites, and please reach out to us if you have any questions. Now I want to point your attention to the bottom of the screen here. There will be a QR code. Go ahead and open the camera app on your phone and focus the view on that code, and you'll see a link that appears. When you click on that link, it'll take you to our 2025 Hurricane Guide. Be sure to bookmark that as well. And at the bottom of that page is a link to download it in PDF format to save it to your device for offline use. So to wrap things up, get your preparations done before hurricane season even begins, and stay informed throughout the season to know when and if you need to take action. Please, please, please do not wait for a storm to be named before you develop your plan. The time to prepare is now. Thank you for your time listening in today. Let's stay vigilant, let's stay safe, and let's stay prepared.